Hi, Jennifer Stuart here, and I'm so excited today to be chatting with Carol Kranowitz. Hopefully, I said that right, Carol. And great. And she's going to be joining me as part of my summit series, The Peace and Joy of Parenting, to help parents learn how to raise amazing kids and have awesome relationships with their children. And I'm super excited to have Carol here. Carol taught children as a drama teacher, music, movement, and drama for about 25 years. And she started noticing some different sensory processing issues with a lot of her students and began to study sensory integration. And she wanted to be able to help her students be able to develop, and if they needed any help at a young age, to be able to help them out. So Carol is best known for her first book, in the In Sync series, The Out of Sync Child, which I personally, as a mom and a teacher, love. And my other favorite book that I found really helpful was The Out of Sync Child Has Fun, with all the amazing activities you have in there. I really enjoyed that, Carol. She's written many, many different books and manuals and publications, and she has a master's in education and human development from the George Washington University. And I wanted to mention the Out of Sync Child book that she wrote has sold over 1 million copies already. So that's amazing, Carol. You've reached a lot of parents and helped a lot of children with that. So today I wanted to chat with Carol to try to provide parents out there with some more information on what I think is something that a lot of people don't realize can be affecting children is sensory processing. I think it's one of those lesser known topics for a lot of parents. So I wanted to, I guess the first thing I kind of wanted to ask is, what are some things that parents can do on a daily basis that can help their kids deal with these issues, Carol?
That is a wonderful question, because the issues can start immediately when the little kid won't get out of bed, for instance, or won't get dressed. Or I think the main thing is the general global reminder to yourself as a parent that you are doing a great job, that you have in your home a challenging child, a wonderful spirited child, and it's all going to turn out all right. I also want parents to remember to be the grown-up, and this is perhaps a tall order.
Yes,
but
please.
when little kids are pressing every button, it's so natural for us to escalate with the child, and our voices get louder, and we get contentious. We tend to get contentious with our kids, and instead, if we can open our arms and go toward this child who's behaving so monstrously at this particular moment, like after he dumps the blueberries all over the baby's head, and just say, I know you're having a tough time this morning. If we can just remember the child is out of control, and what a gift for mommy or daddy not to be out of control too. So that's I think I can pride myself on a couple of really good moments as a mom and as a teacher where I remembered that and I kept my cool.
Right.
And
definitely, yeah. I mean, it's easy to be pulled right into their energy for sure.
Yes, yeah. So easy. And then try to keep your sense of humor. Again, a tall order, I know, but I went into a party shop near my house, and I said, do you have any really big, outrageous glasses? And the lady said, oh, well, I've got these. So I bought these. These are my sensory spectacles. Now, not everyone has to go buy them, but put on your imaginary sensory spectacles.
I love that, Carol.
When your child is having a meltdown, or it's my body, or you can't make, won't wake up, or I won't wear socks or can't, put on your goggles and ask yourself 2 questions. Is there something in the child's immediate environment that is really getting to him? And often it's something that there's too much of something. There's too much noise. The tag in the t-shirt is too itchy. There's too much time pressure. Hurry up, finish your Cheerios, we have to get in the car. There's too much of because I said so and do this and do that. Is there too much of something that's causing the child to have a difficult moment? Or another question that's harder to see because you don't see what is not there. But the second question is there a sensation or an experience that my child needs that he's not getting? And more I see this in our society where kids are praised for sitting and being quiet and being obedient instead of being praised for wriggling around a little bit. Because you know what? When they're wriggling around a little bit, they're trying to get organized. And if we can see that, oh, that's the kid. That tapping his hands on the chair is his way of getting a pattern going, getting organized.
Well, and I think one of the things I love all that is to recognizing what they're going through and to try to come alongside them and be understanding instead of trying to make them fit in our box. But then I think as a parent and as a teacher, there becomes that point too, like, when do you decide that at some point they're pushing that boundary and you're going to have some rules, so I think that's tricky. Like, okay, what are we going to allow because this is needed for the child? And at what point is it, okay, no, you can't, just climb over all the walls and be completely out of control.
I know. And Jennifer, I know that we're talking to teachers and you and I are teachers. So,
well, and I think most the parents and the audience is mostly parents on this.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm a teacher. I also have 3 kids, but I always think like a teacher.
Yeah. Well, having 3 kids, you probably have 3 personalities from different planets, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And one of them wants to move all the time, and one of them wants to move little of the time, and one of them wants to be a pleaser. And I know.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So what do you do? Well, there are a few things that I've learned that work for all children. So when you're trying to organize breakfast time, for instance, I'm thinking of those time crunch.
Yeah, mornings are hard as a mom.
You've got to get stuff done and you've got to get out of the house. Okay. There are simple, practical things that we can think of, like get some, I just have to jump up for a sec.
That's okay.
Okay.
She's getting her movement in. No.
Kicks here. This is called TheraBand. They're different brand names. And it's stretchy material, and we use it at the physical therapists,
right,
or at the gym. It's stretchy, and you can go like this. So you can buy it in long yardage, and then cut it into small pieces. So cut a few pieces that are child size, like a preschooler. I would cut it 30 inches. For a 4th grader, I would give him a yard. That's just basic measurements. I think every child should be able to have this in his lap while he's eating, or in his school bag to take out at school. And I hope that teachers would say, "Oh, he's controlling that. That's okay. We can."
Yes, I say as long as they're not getting their neighbor with it, right?
That's right. And if you can afford it, get a piece for every child in the class, and then you solve a big problem there, because everybody will want one. Anyway, there are many things you can do with this. You can tie the ends to the front legs of the chair, figure out how to do that, so the child can put his feet on it and press down.
Sure.
What I'm looking for at times when children are forced to be seated is ways for them to have some pressure.
Maybe parents can take something like that to a restaurant if they wanted to try to have a nice meal.
Excuse me 1 second. I'm having an interview. Okay.
Carol is just a wealth of information here. So she's always wanting to be, people are always wanting your attention.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Mark just discovered a plumbing problem, but
oh no.
this is much more interesting. All right, pressure. Children want to exert pressure and let them do it. Resistance is what they need. They need things to squeeze. You could give them a couche ball to put between their knees on the dining room chair and have them squeeze that while they're eating. Give them things to chew, because movement is going to help them get organized. So you have their feet pressing down on something like this in their chair. You have maybe something between their knees. You could have them sit on a therapy ball instead of a chair and have them jiggle a little bit like that. And it's sort of, if you're new to all this, the sensory integration techniques, if you're new to them, you think, what Carol is saying, tell my jiggler to jiggle? Yes.
Right.
Tell my resistant kid who just puts up a battle with everything, tell that kid to resist more? Yes. Physically, we are raising limp, noodly do-nothings.
For sure.
I travel quite a bit. I go to airports and hotels, and I laugh at myself when I go into a public ladies' room and I stick my hands under the faucet waiting for the water to turn on. And every once in a while you get into a sink where you actually have to exert some pressure and make a decision about which way to turn the faucet. What are kids learning? They don't have to tie their shoelaces anymore because there's Velcro. They don't have to learn how to read an analog clock because everything is digital.
Yeah.
And you remember, Jennifer, when kids come into school and they say, oh, Miss Jennifer, I can tell time, because they can read numbers.
Sure.
6. They can't tell time.
We do still teach that in my preschool, but I'm old school, so.
Good. Well, you and I are in sync. I get hot and bothered about how this smart technology in the 21st century is making our kids dumb, because
Sure. I'm talking to some experts in this series specifically about technology and how it's affecting kids, because that's something definitely on my heart as well. Right. So when you're talking about these things that they can, these toys or tools or bands or push balls, what are some of the ones that you think would be best for, because I know as a teacher, a lot of parents will come to me like, I can't go to the store. I can't go to an appointment. I can't. So, I guess they could take a band with them. They could take a cushion with them.
Absolutely. Here's some little tricks. Have a deli container filled with elastic bands or rubber bands. And at the grocery store, let your child play with them. If a few drop, you can pick them up, or I don't believe in littering, but an elastic band on the floor is not going to be the end of the world. But they can just pull on those little things. Just keep those in your purse all the time. Give your kids jobs to do, like matching jobs. You have to go to the grocery store, and this kid is a terror in the grocery store. Well, can you give him a coupon that has the kind of baked Campbell soup label on it of the soup that he likes, and have a matching game. Yeah. Give him a job to do. Sometimes that's true at a museum too. Give the child a few postcards of artworks that you want to go see in the museum, and take the child to that room and have him match it. I would do something with my student to me. So I'd go to their classroom first and hand out big pieces of construction paper, just plain construction paper. And then I would say, when you come to my room, sit in a hoop that matches the color of your paper.
Nice.
This was just the neatest way to get 3-year-olds down the hall. They had, they were holding their paper in their hands, and they were on a mission. They were going to find
Focused, yeah.
Right. So those are some little tricks. But back to your purse or your glove compartment. String, ribbons. Here's something. This is called jewelry. You don't have to buy it. I mean, you can find things like this one. This is something that, like a necklace that children can wear, and they can chew on it. Okay. So you could just give them things to fiddle with. This is something. This is a binder from a manuscript.
Definitely. Yeah.
Is that interesting?
You can do no, I just like different little fidget things for sure. Right. Yeah.
Pantyhose. Ooh, maybe not.
That's funny. So
look around and just see, do you have things that will entertain the children and keep them busy and give them something to pull and push and squeeze?
Yeah. It'd be very nice to have them playing with that instead of on the screen, because I think oftentimes we resort, right? Now that that's so easy,
yes.
Give them the screen.
It's so easy. And so what's getting exercise? Their eyeballs and their thumbs, I guess. But what I want to do is have kids learn relationships, not only between themselves and other people, but also between objects in the world. So and you can only learn how to build with blocks or make a recipe or make a mud pie if you do it.
Sure.
You can't learn about it if you're watching it in 2 dimensions. You have to get your body into it.
Yeah, well, and something I've noticed over the years is that the kids who seem to have different sensory processing issues, whether it's auditory or touch or whatever, often are the ones that tend to have the social issues and sometimes even academic issues. So I always found that very interesting. The kids, for me, it usually shows up with the tactile issues. It's easier to see in my preschool, but the kids who don't want to touch the slime or the mud or whatever are the ones that also have a hard time at free play with interacting with the other kids. So I don't know, if there's a way, and obviously we can't force them to do those things because it would be overload, but if there's a way to like help them through that.
Oh, yeah. Parent. You're saying so much there, Jennifer.
Sorry.
No. I'm saying
I'm a little passionate about it.
I know. I'm so nice that you're so observant. So to continue with some of the things that you're saying, tactile issues show up, and they're the most evident when we have our spectacles on, because kids are going to be squirming and shying away and pulling on their clothes, and they don't want to sit next to other children at the floor. So we have to respect that. We have to look at the child physically, and when we put on our spectacles, we think, what sensations are too much for this child? I can take those away. I'm not going to make him do mud pies if he doesn't want to. But I have to replace it with something else that will be interesting and that will give him some tactile information, because we're really tactile people. We have to explore our world with our bodies, with our skin, with our hands. And that leads us to be more social too. We can't let our children just be in a little bubble. So we can do things like give kids messy things to play with inside Ziploc plastic bags. Mm-hmm. They can see it. They can work on it through the plastic. That's one thing we can do. We can give children vinyl gloves, like the kind you use for washing the dog or something. Or you can even cut fingers off the gloves if the gloves are too large for our small children. And they can put, it's called a finger cot. You just put a little sleeve on the little fingers, and then they can poke. So what we want to do is bring children to the table. And it's It's small amounts. It like incrementally get the child uh, saying, "Oh, this little spoonful of oatmeal in my bowl, it's not so bad." And then next week it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. But don't never force a child or anyone to do anything. It just backfires. Forcing just backfires. But let's look at the skin. Parents say, "Oh, sensory processing is just such a huge topic. I don't think I can get it." Let me distill it into 3 body parts.
Okay.
Skin, inner ear, which regulates our sense of balance and our movement, and muscles and joints. So with your spectacles on, you look at your kid, you think, why is he having a meltdown? It's easy if you see that the peanut butter got on his cheek and it makes him really uncomfortable. Or he's got bumpy seams in his socks. And he'll tell you with his behavior, he's working on those socks. He's pulling them off. He's kicking his feet. He's hating that. Okay, we can see that. Inner ear, look at how your child gets into different modes of locomotion. Can he run? Can he stop? Lots of kids with what's called vestibular dysfunction, once they get started, they don't know how to stop. And I used to take red paper and make an octagonal shape and write stop on it and laminate it, and I would put it on the floor. And kids had a fun time just running and then jumping on the stop sign.
Yeah, making it fun always, right?
Making it fun. But look at your kids. Are they on the swing nonstop? Are they never on the swing? So some kids crave a lot of movement. Some kids crave a lot of touching. Others want none of it. But we can start looking at what sensory experiences that the kids are having or not having that's causing a problem.
And then it sounds like you're saying then try to introduce them little by little to the things that they normally avoid.
Right. Muscles and joints. So skin is obvious. Vestibular, you'll begin to catch it once you start looking for it. Muscles and joints, that has to do with can a child orient his body to put his sweater on? You know, some kids will put an arm into the sleeve and then they go chasing around. You know, they don't know how to reverse it with the other arm, or putting on spectacles, or getting dressed, or going through an obstacle course, getting into a seat belt, getting into a school chair or a dining room chair. All that's proprioception that we're looking at, and a lot of children have these issues where you think, man, is he klutzy? You know what? We tend to scold children too, and I am certainly not blameless. I am embarrassed at the times in my career as a teacher before I understood any of this, when I would say, "You're rude," if a child put his hands over his ears, and then later found out he had auditory over-responsiveness. Or I would hurry kids along if they were taking a long time to take the coat off and put it on the hook. All of that is those things where we get frustrated and irritable with our kids.
Right.
It's often sensory. So think skin, inner ear, muscles and joints. And then you can also explain that to parents, to teachers and to mothers and also.
Definitely. And then I was wondering, do you think that most of the children are born with these issues, or are there things that cause them to develop? I mean, I'm sure it's a mix of both, but do you think there's one stronger than the other, or what's your thought on that?
My understanding is most kids are born with it, and it could be that it's genetic. Sometimes there's issues like this in the family. Now, everyone with autism has sensory issues. But there are many people with sensory issues who do not have autism. So, for instance, I really hate getting my hands messy. I don't like baking bread, for instance. I can't, it's very uncomfortable for me to get my hands messy. I do not have sensory processing disorder, though, because it doesn't violate my life. I get through life. I don't bake bread. Okay, so I figured out how to get through life.
How to bake bread.
I'm doing fine. But if it meant that I couldn't get dressed, that I couldn't sleep because I couldn't tolerate the sheets, that I couldn't step out the door because I didn't know, because air would bother me. I know people, air on their skin bothers them.
Sure.
Then we're talking sensory processing disorder. All right, so where does it come from? It's often inherited. Okay. And you will look at a child and you will say, I used to be like that too when I was a little girl. I was very particular about my clothes. Or my mom was like that too. So look into the family and see if you have similar situations. Sometimes, and you might have seen this too, Jennifer, you might see little students who love painting their whole bodies with a finger paint, and and sometimes their moms are just as neat and tidy as you could ever see. And that's not a good fit when little girl comes home from school and mom comes back and says, could you please keep her away from the finger paints? Sometimes it's both mother and child have a tactile sensory problem.
Sure.
Two sides of the same coin. One is overly tidy, one is overly messy. Well, okay. So hereditary, and another way to develop sensory issues is because of the environment. So, for instance, preemies, many preemies who are born early, their neurological development hasn't had the full 9 months, and so they tend to. There's a predilection, I guess I'd say, for sensory processing issues. Babies who have and that would not be genetic. That would be because of the environment. Being in the NICU, in the intensive care unit at the hospital for a while, or tubes and hospitalization. It's not like being at mom's breast all the time. Babies who come out just fine and then are put into orphanages. And this is particularly true of children in Eastern European countries, Romania, Russia, babies who are put into orphanages. They don't get the 24/7 care that babies need. They don't get skin contact. They're propped up to the nurse from a bottle rather than being held and caressed and moved. Mm-hmm. They're not given toys. And, there are a lot of important expectations that we have for a typical baby. So then tactile over-responsivity is an example of something that occurs very often in babies who are adopted into loving homes, but they've had 6 months or 2 years in a Russian orphanage, and they don't have those neurological skills. Great childhood stress. Baby can come out fine, and he gets home and everybody's smoking, or the nourishment is not up to par, or there's noise and erratic sleep, and caregivers come and go, and all of that kind of thing can do damage to the developing child.
And then What kinds of help can parents seek if they're concerned that their child might have some form of SPD? What would you
Yeah,
recommend?
there's one answer, and that is for no matter where the sensory processing disorder originated, the answer for everybody is OTSI. That stands for Occupational Therapy Using Sensory Integration Techniques. So OT, we think of OT as it's an allied health field that it's like 150 years old or something. It's been around for a long time, and it was designed to help veterans or people who had lost a limb or had some physical ailment. And OT was originally for adults to help them learn occupational skills. Well, pediatric OT is for little kids to learn the occupations of childhood. So it teaches them how to get used to messy play. And you start dry and then you gradually get messier and messier. And if the child has vestibular issues and wants his feet on the ground all the time, the therapist doing OTSI will have the child walking on a strip of masking tape on the floor. Now, that doesn't seem like it would be scary. Gosh, for some kids, that's visually enough of a challenge to require them to work really hard. And then instead of masking tape, you put a board on the floor and the child's up an inch. And then the board is tipped up at one end, it becomes a ramp. And then, so incrementally the therapist makes these vestibular challenges greater, and that is developing the occupational skills. A child needs to be a really great functioning adult.
Good, very good. And I think we're about up with our time here. I think I could talk with you for hours about all of this.
I know, I talk to.
I love it too. So
I have just one more thing, two more.
Yeah,
one is when we're looking at our children and we don't know what's going on, self-esteem is a real biggie. Kids with sensory issues, they're beautiful, they're smart, they're loved, but sometimes you'll hear little kids say, I'm no good, I can't do that. That should be a great, huge red flag for everybody. Children should say, look, I did it.
Yeah.
Let me try. Me do it. And so please, let's really focus on this. The child who says, I'm no good. Every child's good. Every child's great. And that sometimes it's a sensory thing that is very hard to see, but is there. And one more thing. I have just been so incredibly enriched in my career working with people with sensory issues. And my latest book, The Out of Sync Child Grows Up, has 50 stories in it, from little stories, paragraphs sometimes, from teenagers and adults looking back at their adolescence to talk about what they want the world to know about what it's like growing up with SPD. And there are things that will really surprise you in it. What I learned as I was writing this book, and it came out a couple of years ago, what I learned was how many children grow up with sensory issues, and in their journey and struggle to own it and to deal with it, they develop something that only they have. I call it extrasensory grace. I'll never get it. But these people have a sensitivity, an empathy, a magical quality that in the stars. They can intuit what people are feeling. I'm just awed by my sensory friends who challenged their parents so much as children and then grew up to be miraculous people. So I guess
Yeah, they must have gone through some major development and have overcome some really big obstacles that have maybe helped them develop that way.
Yeah. They're my heroes and heroines.
That's wonderful. I love that. Well, thank you, Carol. I think for me, I kind of heard overall that it's awesome to try to understand your child because they're all totally different. Meet them where they're at, and help them little by little through their challenges. Have humor when you can, right? So we don't lose our mind when they're losing their minds.
Absolutely.
And I would love to encourage people to learn more because we can hardly just touch upon the iceberg here today. Carol has a ton of books and also a lot of information on your website. What's the best way for people to get more information from your work, Carol?
Probably my website is carolstockkranowitz.com.
Okay. Perfect. And we'll have the link in the email for you guys.
Right. Okay. All right. And you can send emails to me through my website, and I answer all my emails. And I would love to chat with all of you who are watching and listening today, because I know you might have some questions, and I may have an insight or two to share.
Definitely. Yes. And I highly recommend getting Carol's books. I know they're on Amazon as well and just about anywhere. Yeah. And there are some phenomenal resources. Yes. It's her original one there. Yeah. And then the companion one with that, I think is great for parents with young kids. Yes. I think when my son was little, I had the one that has fun one dog-eared on like so many pages.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to see that.
Yes. So, well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Carol. And be sure to pop over to her website to get more information. Like I said, we could barely touch on everything here. So, all right. Well, have a good day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.